Right, okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good day to you. For this lesson, what we are going to look at is on how you are going to present your informative speech. And then I will include some of the reminders as well as tips and tricks on how to better your presentation, your informative speech presentation. Right? Okay, the first of all, um, what we are going to look at is what does it mean by informative speech. I believe that we have covered this. And then as well as number two, you have to use visual aids while you are presenting your informative speech. Then after that, we are going to look at what kinds of visual aids that you could include, sample charts and graph afterwards, and then the guidelines on using PowerPoints as well as samples of informative speech. After that, we are going at last. I'm going to give you guys a sample of informative speech. All right. So I believe that we have covered this. What does it mean by informative speech? So basically, when we are talking about informative speech, it is a speech that you want to inform other people about one particular thing. For example, like I mentioned earlier, as benefits of exercising, right? We have the topic as well as the focus topic over there. The topic is exercising. The focus topic, we are looking at the benefits. It is possible for you guys to look at other types of focus topics as well. For example, the drawbacks. Suddenly, we want to talk about disadvantages of exercising, right? Or you want to talk about the ways, the methods, right? There are so many types of exercising. The first method is, or the first type is this, the second type is that, and so on, right? Okay, you could also talk about the impacts, right? The impacts, perhaps bad impacts, good impacts, the same goes, it's just the same as benefits, right? Or you want to talk about, let's look at other topic, for example, climate change, right? The focus topic could be solutions of climate changes, right? The solution. So we are looking at the ways on how we are going to on how we are going to decrease or lessen or rectify climate change. Right? The other focus topic, the types of climate change. Right? If I'm not mistaken, there are seven famous, well-known focus topic. Uh, the cause, effects, problem, solution, benefits, um, types. The last one I could not recall what is the last one, but if I'm not mistaken, there are seven altogether. Right? So if you were to talk about anything that falls under these types, and then you could categorize them. It is simply we are talking about categorization, right? From one thing or another, right? It is called as informative speech. Or you want to talk about endangered species, right? On how to rectify the problem of endangered species, specifically Malayan tiger. That is called as informative speech as well. So, in your case, try to avoid talking about benefits of exercising because so many people are already talking about it. Try to be creative with other topics as well, right? Okay, now, informative speech, you could be talking about this. All right, the first one is object. You want to talk about one specific object, for example, vacuum cleaner or uh, self-monitored vacuum cleaner. Totally up to you. Anything that falls under the sky, you could be talking about it. All right. Or you want to talk about smart car, or you want to talk about electric car. Right? Those things are objects. And number two, you could be talking about processes. For example, on how to do warming up or stretching down, right? Cooling down. Or you want to talk about process on how to become a good students, right? On how to become a good citizen of Malaysia. That is what we call as processes. Moving on, you want to talk about events. For example, you want to talk about the era in Malaysia, right? And then you could categorize them into pre-independence, during independence, post-independence, and in the 2000s. Right? Totally up to you. Anything that you put into category the timeline, anything that in regards to timeline, that is called as events. And last one is concept. Concept, you want to talk about concept, the idea of a good Muslim or a good believer of a religion concept, or you want to talk about a concept of anything that in regards to concept, you want to give a definition on how to do it, as well as the impact, a concept of something. Okay, all right. While you are doing your presentation, please do not. It is you have to understand your audience, right? Who are the audience in front of you? Whether they are experts or they are laymen, all right, or the people who do not know about who do not know about the thing that you are talking about. So it is best for you to do a survey beforehand, but in your case we know who are your audience, who are your listeners, so that is easy. But then if you were to go out, you have a public speaking event, try to do a survey or ask around who are the audience or who are the listeners of your speech, right? Sometimes people tend to overestimate what the audience know. Sometimes they underestimate what the intelligence of the audience. So you have to be in the middle. You have to be, if you were to think that some of the concepts, some of the jargons or difficult words that your audience would not know, then try to explain, give a brief explanation. But then if you think that you do not have to explain about something, ask around, ask your friends whether I should you have a specific word, for example, jargon, the one that I mentioned just now. All right. Some people might not know what does it mean by jargon. Some people do know. So I'm going to take it the safe way and by explaining briefly what does it mean by jargon, and that is difficult words, all right, that belongs to one specific area, right? Okay, you have to try, and the best way for you to do this is by asking around, ask your friends whether you should be explaining one specific or one difficult word that you are using or not. Okay. Secondly, always try to relate subject to the audience. All right. If you're talking about you are explaining if you are talking about the concept of investment by using stocks, and then you are explaining this to us, your classmates. I believe that many of us could not relate to the topic. But then if you were to talk about on how to generate your money, or how to make your money compounding, uh, passive income, on how to get passive income, then it would be relatable. So try to, even though you want to talk about something that is quite out of our area, try to make it relatable to the audience that you have in front of you. Okay, the next one. This is the guidelines when you are doing informative speech. Number number three is, like I mentioned earlier, do not use too many jargons. That is not to use any technical words. For example, you guys are sport students. While you're talking about muscles, do not use the complicated ones, the complicated words referring to your calf or referring to your um shoulder. All right. Perhaps you want to simplify the words. You just mentioned that we have a muscle at our shoulder that if we do not use it, it's going to be blah, 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 blah. All right. Perhaps you want over here, you know that I'm your lecturer of your English lecturer. I do not know what kind of muscle, the names of the muscles of our body. Perhaps you could include a, a visual aid over here, right? You just include a picture, muscles of our shoulder, and then point out this is the muscle that you need to relax or you need to stretch, something like that. Okay. Avoid abstractions, all right? Meaning that you have to use descriptions, try to use comparison, try to use contrast. Like I mentioned just now, instead of using difficult words referring to one of the muscles of our body, you just use description. Okay, number three, the next one, this is number five, is to personalize ideas, meaning that try to make it relatable to our daily life, right? And then try to be creative when you are describing, when you are elaborating things. Now, the next one, we are going to look at visual aid advantages. While you are presenting, you have to be very careful with your presentation, with your PowerPoint especially. I believe that many of us are going to use PowerPoint. I'm not sure. You could be more creative if you want to use Prezi or if you want to use Canva. Totally up to you. But make sure if you were to use something that is out of ordinary, what you could do is to practice the ways around your application of choice. All right, so that you won't face any hiccups, severe hiccups during presentation. If you think that it is more appropriate to download, if for example using Canva, if you want to download the presentations beforehand, then do so. If you think just as a backup plan, in case that when you are presenting, the Canva doesn't work well, then you could use the PDF files or that you have downloaded. Alright? Okay, now let's look at the function of visual aid. Like I mentioned earlier, when you are presenting for your presentation of informative speech, the minimum number of slides that you could have is three. That is the minimum, right? But make sure that it is not too many. I haven't set the maximum. I will, all right? I believe that the appropriate number of slides would be less than 10. The last time I have set them the maximum is 6. But then, um, we divided the presentation into two parts, right? So this time around, I might give you the maximum is 10, right? Including the first one stating your name as well as the last one thank you any question. So altogether maximum is 10. Right. Now, that being said, now let's look at the purpose of having a visual aid. Right? Because you don't want your visual aids to be pointless. So these are the things that you would like to have if you were to use any pictures or any video. The first one is that it should increase clarity. For example, the one that I mentioned earlier, the concept of if you were to mention any difficult words of muscle of our body, perhaps you want to include a picture indicating labeling which one is the muscle. So that one is going to increase the clarity to those people who do not know what kind of muscle or which locations of muscle that you are referring to. That is the purpose of your visual aid. Number two, you are going to use visual aid to boost interest of your listeners. Right? For example, you want to by having a picture indicating which one is the muscle of our body at the shoulder location, people will tend to be more interested into listening to you, right? Okay. And number three is to help increase memories retention. I believe, regardless whether we are interested or not into knowing the location of the muscle, it is at least is going to stick in our mind for the day, right? So having a visual aids is going to increase the memories retention, right? Number four is that it's going to build credibility, especially when you are including any infographic or any what we call it as bar chart, any chart coming from credible sources, right? For example, just now I encounter uh, an infographic from the authority this one this morning. All right. So this is sorry. Okay, this is talking about three types of micro mobility vehicles that is prohibited on the road starting today, immediately. So this is an infographic coming from this type, if I'm not mistaken. So this is going to improve, enhance clarity, make people more interested, as well as the last one. What did I say? Builds credibility, right? Because we know that it is coming from the Ministry of Transportation, Datuk Seri Wee Kang Seong, right? So this is going to help you to increase, enhance your credibility, right? This kind of things that is needed actually while you are doing your informative speech, right? Try to find any charts you might want to include bar chart or pie chart in your presentation, and it has to be credible, right? It's not something that you come up on your own. It is something from the authority. Oh, sorry, infographic by Bernama is not the star, it's by Bernama. And then last but not least, hopefully by having all the infographic, all the chart, pie chart, bar chart, pictures of people is going to intensify persuasiveness of this speech. Meaning that people will be it's not interested, will be more convinced that you are delivering the correct s- uh, the correct source of information, all right, or the correct thing that you are talking about, right? Perhaps for example, if you want to talk about muscles, then you are citing the benefits of stretching your muscles from a credible source. For example, uh, Menteri Kesihatan, Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, or you want to cite a sports person, a person who involved in sports very heavily, all right? So those are the things that you have to do in order to better your marks. So if you were to have this kind of credible sources while you're presenting, then your marks will be there are some marks for that, and then you will get the marks for that. It's not just you come up with your own, meaning that you have to do some research over here, right? As simple as you just Google. I believe that everyone is very adept with the internet these days. You just try to Google and you get something that is related with your topic. Okay, now, uh, now, try to find, when you are presenting, try to find any graphs or charts that could be used for your informative speech that is going to boost your marks highly, right? Meaning that you have to take out graphs, charts that provided by credible authorities to be put in your presentation. Meaning that if you are talking about benefits of exercising, specifically with the materials that you have on your own, you just brainstorm and then you come up with your own. So you won't score marks for that particular component. Okay? All right. Now, um, Okay, this is the guideline if you were to include photos as well as drawing. Make sure that the photo is large enough to focus on the thing that you would like to focus, right? And it is clear enough for the audience to look at the photo. And secondly is that uh, you cannot put it just as a decoration. All right. Everything that you include in your PowerPoint or in your slide must have a purpose. It's not just to fill in the empty spaces. Yeah, that is what we call as a board passing. Right. Okay, meaning that it is everything needs to be there for a purpose. You have to talk about the photos or the drawings that you include in your presentation, or else it's going to be pointless. We are not at the level of photos just for decorations or to make it more interesting. No more. All right. We are at the university. Anything that you include in your PowerPoint slides or your slides, they must serve a purpose because you only have like maximum 10, 8 is actually it because the first one is going to be to state your name, the last one, the end. Thank you very much. All right. Do you have any questions? So you have about 8 altogether, 8 slides altogether, and your slides cannot be, the content of your slides cannot be too wordy. So, meaning that you have very limited number of, very limited like spaces that you could use for your presentation. Okay, this is what I mentioned just now. Okay, all right. Make sure that it is appropriate as well. All right. If not, people are not going to pay attention. People are not going to pay attention to you. Instead, they are going to look at, oh, if you were to put, suddenly you are talking about benefits of exercising, and you put a flower over there. People are going to pay attention to the color of the flower, whether it is beautiful or not, instead of focusing on you. So meaning that you make sure everything is in your slide, they are beneficial to your purpose. Right? Be careful with the appropriateness images that you input, that you have put in the slides. For example, this one is not appropriate. Perhaps it's going to make sense to dyslexia people or dyslexic children, but not to regular or normal people, right? So, but if you are presenting to dyslexic children or dyslexic people, then it's going to make sense. It's going to be useful, but not to us regular people. I assume everyone is normal without any problem of dyslexia. Uh, that being said, this would not be useful. Okay, now when you are doing your presentation for the LC 590, right, you might want to include some graphs and then you might want to talk about the graph. You have to show statistical trends as well as pattern if you were to discuss about any graph, regardless, uh, pie chart or bar graph, right? Okay. If you are including a line graph, talk about show more than one lines to show changes over time. For example, the number of male students enrolled in university versus the number of female students enrolled in at the university. So you compare between the two, right? The two, whether one is increasing, the pattern is increasing or decreasing or steady. So you have to talk about the lines over the time. This is one example. All right, percentage of personal spending. Then you discuss about both food as well as healthcare versus time, right, versus the years. Number two, if you're including a pie graph, highlight segments of circle to show distribution of patterns. For example, over here, right? In the 1900s versus 2010, what is the difference between the two? Single people, women in the workforce, all right? In 1900, single is more at 68%, and then in the 2010, it lessened dramatically to 28%. Right? On the other hand, we could see a vice versa trend to married people. Right? In the 1900, they were only 14% of them, and surprisingly, it increased significantly in the 2010, where else they are 52% of the women in the workforce are married. Something like that. All right? Okay, now bar graph. If you were to use a bar graph, the purpose is to show comparison, obviously. So this is one example of bar graph, and then you have to discuss the difference between one one material or one point to another, right? Okay, median household. The first one is for black people, there are 34,000. For white people, there are 52,000. And the difference is stark between the two, right? Infant mobility. We could see the second element is infant mortality for black people is 13.2 death for every 1,000 birth. But for white people, they were only 5.6 death for every 1,000 birth. So you compare between the two. That is the purpose of bar graph, right? You could use charts to summarize large block of information, usually as lists, right? If you have a lot of information and deem it appropriate to put it as list, then have it that way, right? Okay, then if you want to come out with your own chart or your own list, try to indicate where the source is coming from. You have because for informative speech, everything needs to be validated as truth. You cannot be saying that, oh, for every 100 students of UITM students, there are 51 females and 49 male. But then there is no credible sources. Right? You just come up with that. So that is not the truth. And you are not going to score points for your presentation skill. Sorry, for your ELC, informative speech. So make sure that in order for me to validate that is the truth, you include where the source is coming from. And this is the purpose of you using a chart. If you think that you want to you want to achieve these purposes, right? At least one of these purposes, then you try to use charts to describe or to elaborate your points. Okay, now it's also possible for you to use videos as long as the internet connection is strong, right? But somehow you have to bear in mind these are the guidelines. The first one is that you have to keep it short. Maximum 30 seconds is long. So make sure that it is less than that. 1 minute is too long. 1 or 2 minutes is too long. Right? And try to cue the start of the clip. Meaning that it's as simple as now we are going to look at a short video clip in regards to climate change. Right? And then you just play your clip. Integrate smoothly, right? Integrate smoothly. It's not so very sudden. Do not make it very sudden. Or you could use video at the very beginning of your presentation. But somehow you have to indicate that you are playing a video. Avoid low resolution. If you're playing a video, make sure that you have good internet or stable internet connection so that other people won't see lagging video, all right? Wouldn't watch a lagging video. And then it is better for you to download the video beforehand. Alright, it's not that you are showing from YouTube or from other sources. Okay, now the next one we are going to talk about the speaker, and that is you yourself. The first one, I know that we are not doing this face to face, or we could not see your body language, but still we could see your hand gestures, your face, your facial expressions, right? Your eye contact. Try to use all these body limbs or body parts in order to engage with the audience, right? Make sure your eye contact, you are looking at your audience. You are not reading the notes. You are not reading out aloud. I have been teaching for about 4 years. Alright? So I know when somebody is reading your notes. We could see that. With the voice, the tone of voice, we could see that whether you are reading or you are explaining. Because when you are explaining, your tone of voice is going to be very high. While you are reading is going to be monotonous. As well as you are going to have very lengthy sentences when you are reading. Whereas when you are speaking, you know where to stop. Because whenever you want to pause, is going to, you know that you are pausing in order to emphasize the idea that you are trying to convey. Pausing, right? Okay, but then when we are talking about body gestures, yeah, body gestures, use your hands, use your eye contact, use your face, right? Because we do not know whether you are dancing. We are not having this face to face. We do not know whether you are dancing in front of the class. If you are doing this in front of class, I'm going to remind you not to dance around. Some students they dance around. Some students they are very stiff, stick to one place, and then they are just memorizing and like saying it back to this class. It's going to be very boring. Okay? Okay, how do you achieve this? How do you achieve to be comfortable using body gestures with your audience? Practice is the key, right? You have to practice, practice, and practice. Okay, next one. I believe that everyone is going to use PowerPoint. Try to combine several audio visual material, meaning that sometimes we are going to listen to some things, or sometimes we are going to listen to things, something moving, right? Okay, make it clear and make it like easy to be read, right? Smooth on the eyes, easy on the eyes, right? Try to use colors that is not very stark, that is not very uh, is not painful for your eyes to see. Pastel colors or blue, green usually is going to do the work. Avoid something yellow, very evident yellow or red, right? Unless that you are emphasizing something very important, then you could use red in your presentation. Okay? Used to enhance specific points. Do not overpower the presentation. Do not read from the screen. That being said, make sure your PowerPoint is not lengthy or wordy. If you are looking at my PowerPoint, I have talked about for 33 minutes, half an hour. But the points, the things I included in my PowerPoints, they are very brief. The rest of them is my own explanation. Right? So you have to do that. Do not have something very lengthy so that if you were to have something lengthy, a lot of words on the PowerPoint, people are going to read your PowerPoint. People are not going to listen to you. So if you have something very simple, you just have the main idea, you want to talk about uh, you give out a picture, then you elaborate, you talk about the picture, then people are going to listen to you instead of looking or reading your PowerPoints. Right? Okay. Okay, when you are in order to prepare for your visual aid, make sure that you go Google. Sorry, it's not Google, it's Google. Google any appropriate pictures to be used in your as your visual aid. Right? Prepare in advance and try to ponder through whether this visual aids is appropriate to be included in your slides or not. Okay, keep it simple, make it large enough, like I mentioned earlier, and then limit the amount of text. Limit the amount of text, make sure that it's not very wordy, it's not very lengthy. Okay, as well as I have mentioned this fonts. Choose or select your fonts effectively, choose the color effectively. You just go on Google, try to look at the try to Google what is the best font for presentation. They are going to give out a couple of suggestions. All right, for example, use Arial, Times New Roman, that is the most common. Um, do not use something that is very fancy and difficult to be read, right? Is going to put a hindrance to your from you to convey the ideas or the thoughts to your listeners. Something that is easy on the eyes. Limited text, for example, like this one, you want to talk about Easter Island, all right? The content of Easter Island, the elaboration of Easter Island must be coming from you, right? Do not talk about location. It is located on at blah 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 blah. And then discovery. It was discovered by Ali bin Abu on April 5, 2020. During the day of discovery, something, 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 and very lengthy text. No, those elaborations you have to tell the world by yourself. Do not put it in your PowerPoint slide. Okay. Effective fonts. We're talking about fonts. Make sure that it is easy, clear to be read. Normal case, meaning that it's not macam budak TikTok. Bukan budak TikTok. We call it as budak apa? TikTok je. Tak tahulah. I'm not very sure with what kind of medium or what kind of social media that youngsters use these days. Right? Make sure that it is a sentence case, normal sentence case. Meaning that if you are, as for the title over here, the title should be in, sorry, the title should be in capital letters. And then if you are explaining the content, it is in sentence case. The first letter should be in capital, the rest they are small letters. Right? Okay, now you are doing this when you are studying. Later on, when you are going to work, and then just in case you are involved in some office or desk job, right? Sometimes perhaps you are not entirely related doing desk job. There is just sometimes one of two times that you have to come up with presentation. These are the things that you need to look at. These perhaps to many people they are very small thing. Alah, ni je buat presentation PowerPoint slides je. But you have to make sure that your PowerPoint slides they are effective, easy to be read. Easy to read, right? Because that like 10 minutes, 20 minutes is going to determine your life whether you will get the contract that you are looking for, that you are applying for, or you will get the job that you are applying for. Only 10 to 20 minutes. 10 is too long, all right? Perhaps 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Sometimes it's as short as 2 minutes, 3 minutes. If you're presenting in front of powerful people in the company, for example, the CEO, the COO, or the uh, the minister, right? Or those people who are making decisions, then it somehow is going to help you if the PowerPoint slides, if your slide is effective, right? Okay, two per slide. I'm not sure what does it mean by two per slide, standardized across slides, properly sized. Okay, now properly sized titles and body text. For example, your title is going to be bigger as compared to the content. Right? Make sure that it works that way. And it has to be properly sized. For example, this one, they are all of the same size, the content. Yeah. Okay. This is an example of effective fonts. Okay, I have included over here in effective Blackmore, Bradley Hand. These are the fonts that are difficult to read. This one is easier on the eyes, so smooth on and easy on the eyes, right? You might want to choose any of this, or you might want to choose other fonts that is recommended when you go googling, you find some other recommended fonts, then you might want to use them. As long as they are easy on the eyes. Okay, effective colors. Try to use high contrast, for example, white as well as blue, right? Okay, easy to see. You know, you know whether the colors are easy to see or not. Usually, do not pair yellow with purple, right? Because they are difficult to look at. Okay, and then limited number of colors. For example, over here we have blue, dark blue, as well as white only over here. I do not have more than the usual number of color that we include in the slide. Maximum is 2 or 3. Anything more than that, unless that you are presenting by using a picture, that is totally another case. But then do not include some more than 3 colors in one slide. Consistent across slide, meaning that from the first slide up until the last slide, this is my pattern, this is my style of for this particular slide. Blue, white, and dark blue. Right? Do not suddenly go to purple, yellow, red, uh, black, and so on, chocolate. No, you have to be consistent. Okay, when you are next, we are going to talk about images. I believe that I have covered this. Okay, this is the same. All right, I have mentioned this. All right, okay, chat room and equipment. Since that you are many of you, I believe you are at home. Try to find it's not confined, a private space to yourself, right? If you do not have that, you might want to let me know. Some students, they are presenting from their dorm. If you are on campus, try to avoid that. Go to the library or go around at the S&T building, whether there is an empty classroom or not, right? Try not to have the test or the presentation at your dorm because I have had plenty of this before this semester before this, right? Uh, they tend to be noisy, and then the background noises. Your friends are talking, we're talking, and they are not using a very good language, right? Try to avoid that. Okay. It's okay. No need to do this. But then I need you to consider the right visual aids when you are presenting your topic. Right? Okay, the next one. The next one, um, for those who haven't come up with your appropriate topic for your presentation, make sure to do so. And then for those who have done it, I will comment on your topics, right? I will approve whether it is a go or not. I could see a couple of repeating. It's not a couple, plenty of students are doing on benefits of exercising. Uh, I might restrict. I might restrict the number of students talking about that topic. The rest, you need to work on some other topic. Okay. Okay. Now, I believe that is all for today's lecture. If you have any inquiries, if you have any questions, you may ask me in the WhatsApp group. That is all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.